So like and subscribe if you want to. And it appears that Astralis is back to their old dominant selves. Well, almost after they won the grand finals of the DreamHack Masters over Mouse Sports. Now, this is the first tournament this year where Glaive had complete IGL control, taking over the reins from Magisk. Now, we just found out that I think throughout 2020, it was Magisk who were doing the in-game leadership role, even though Glaive was still there. And it was still the case before and after Glaive took his long medical leave. That's what I think that's what they call it. So now Glaive is back to the role that he has almost perfected. He's considered to be the best IGL in the world. On the other side, Mouse Sports look ready and even confident in the lead up to the grand finals with their impressive wins against Godsent and Heroic, while Astralis started off with a disappointing loss to Godsent, but they seemed to pick it up in the losers bracket, winning series against Team Liquid, G2, Gambit, and Furia on their way to the finals. So they seem to be growing stronger and stronger as they moved up or got deeper into the tournament. So it appears that heading into the grand finals that both teams were roughly on equal footing. You can't consider one to be the heavy favorite. So we expected the grand finals to be a close affair between Astralis and Mouse Sports. Now the first map in train was Mouse Sports pick, and it was an Astralis CT masterclass. I mean, they just locked in Mouse with nades and really spectacular play from who else? From Device. I mean, he's so consistent and he makes things look so easy. Maybe that's why he's rarely in the GOAT conversations, as he does not have much of the flashy highlight plays that guys like Simple and Zaiwu are known for. But man, this guy just knows how to win. I mean, Device was such a stabilizing force in the backline with the AWP and the Deagle with his... I mean, he started off 17-0 in train. You just saw how comfortable Magisk and Xyp9x were in their anchor roles in A and B because, I mean, Device was just there at the right moment at the right time, especially when Mouse was on their way to making an execute or rotating or pulling off a in-game call. I mean, Device was always there to nullify the attack. So in a matchup of the top two IGLs in the world, I mean, in train, Karrigan looked lost with how Astralis took map control, dictated the pace in the early going. I think Astralis started off 8-0. And it was not until when they rushed their executes and just quickened the pace where Mouse was finally able to take rounds. I think they strung together 5 straight rounds to claw back some of the lead Astralis built up in the early part of the map, which eventually settled to a 10-5 CT round for Astralis. So at the switch, when Astralis won the pistol round on their T side, it just became a formality by that point, and they took train 16-5. So after that, there was, I mean, a sweep was in the air. I think Astralis was really playing well. So when we moved to Astralis's pick, which was Inferno, the script was completely flipped as they just couldn't break through Mouse's T side. I mean, I think it was a combination of overconfidence and some carelessness from Astralis with a really solid defensive game plan by Mouse, which completely shut down Astralis's T side. Frozen and Chris J totally locked in B side. I mean, it's the hardest side to hold in Inferno, where they gave Astralis such a difficult time with their unpredictability. There were times where they aggressed forward to deny or just make it very costly to take banana control. It looked like every time Device got near the site, it was down to like 60% health or something from all the nades and the mollies that J and Frozen were throwing at him. And even during the times when Astralis executed on B, Chris J and Frozen did an amazing job of just staying alive long enough for the quick rotate to come in. It was clear at that point that the game plan Mouse had was to not be a hero and allow rotates to come in and contain the executes of Astralis. So in his rotating role, Karrigan was really on point for the whole map. Every time Astralis made a fake or made a late rotate, I mean, he was always there before they eventually made a final desperate execute. And Astralis looked like they were just bashing their heads on a solid wall. So Mouse's CT side was definitely the Robs and Bemis show. I mean, after seeing how hard it was to crack Banana and B, Astralis tried their luck on A, but it was also a bloodbath. I mean, Mouse really exploited that cubby position right before Arch, where Robs and Beams just got multi-kills when Astralis were making a cross or spamming the smoke, and Astralis just lining up to get their heads taken off. I mean, it was a really impressive display by these two young guys. Mainly, early on it was Robs, and then the latter part of the half it was all Bemis, and Astralis just never had an answer for them. So, after a 12-3 score on Mouse's CT side, I mean, I think Astralis just gave up, especially when they lost their pistol round. And you can see that they were already planning for nuke by this time. So, it ended 16-3 to Mouse. So, I think by this point in time, we're expecting a 5-game series to decide this. So, as both teams were evenly matched, Device was always amazing, but it was countered by the brilliant play of Robs. So it's really very, very little or almost nothing that separates both these teams. So Nuke was a much closer map as Astralis subbed in Bubsky for Zipex. I mean, I think we could see this as a recurring theme in the future for Astralis, similar to what Team Vitality has done when they sub in Nevera for certain maps like Dust 2. And I think it showed great promise. I mean, Team Vitality won IEM Beijing, implementing that plan. So I think Astralis saw what's happening there, and I think they're implementing the same thing. Anyway, Astralis started off strong on their CT side again, going 7-1 early with another brilliant showing by Device. I mean, what else can you say about this guy? I mean, he was just a thorn on the side of Mouse, covering different angles, being at the right place at the right time. I mean, he was always there. Mouse was able to tie it up after the switch with Robs and again B-Mass with another clean defensive play. But it's really neck and neck between these two teams and Nuke. I think the turning point were a series of clutches by Astralis. The first was a 1v3 by Device to deny the defuse with his Tech 9. And then the next one was a 1v4 by Glaive. I mean, these series of clutches were truly depressing if you were Mouse Sports. Again, this is where the intangibles come into play. That championship poise that makes the difference, especially when two teams like this are very evenly matched in skills, strats, and mechanics. So it's really the little things that separates the champion from the runner-up in this case. So Nuke ended at 16-13 for Astralis, which was capped off by a stupid mistake by Chris J, spamming lobby on ramp with the op early in the round, which was punished easily by Device. You have to ask who called that spam. Was it Chris J or Carrigan? It basically handed the map to Astralis on a silver platter, really. So the next map, Vertigo, showed the same pattern as Nuke, with both teams going back and forth. Rob's Bemis again played incredibly well on their CT side. Astralis never had an answer to both these guys, especially Rob's on B. I mean, this display shows that these young guys, especially Rob's, are going to be a force to be reckoned with in the future. I mean, no matter what they do, they flashed, they spammed him. Rob's was always defending the right angle or moving or changing his positions right when he needs to be. And he made it very costly for Astralis to take B side. On the other end, A side was a more open affair as Device again controlled the engagements. Getting early picks with the op, protecting the back line during retakes. Still, I think by this point in the game, both teams were really on their game in Vertigo, and it's very hard to separate them. That's why the whole map went to OT. This is where the experience of a team like Astralis comes into play, as they made the fewer mistakes and pulled off the big plays in the end, like Dupree's sick multi-kill on stairs with the MP9. So in the end, Astralis closed it out 22-20, I think, to win DreamHack Masters. So, is this Astralis going back to their old self? Well, I think it's a yes and a no. Yes, because Glaive is back at the helm in his role as the best IGL in the world. You can see that their in-game calls were more on point, were more crisp, and it had that excellent timing that Glaive was known for. So, it also frees up Magus to do what he does best as one of the best riflers in the world. That's taking heads off, right? So, You can see how relaxed Magic was because he's no longer burdened with making the calls or being the IGL. So with that in mind, I think Astralis going back to their normal selves, where the other four guys can focus on what they do best, and Glaive will be the brains that will run the engine of Astralis. But it's also a no, as it appears that Astralis is implementing their 6-man rotation with Bubsky and Nuke. I mean, it can be just a temporary thing, just to ease Zipex in slowly. But I think Astralis saw how effective a sub can be. They saw with Vitality in how they ease or they sub Nivera in at a specific map like Dust 2. That's because when you add a sub or add another variable, I think it's harder for the opposing team to make it makes it harder for the opposing team to craft their game plan on you because there are more questions to ask. So I think Astralis saw the potential of a system like this. I mean, Team Vitality won IEM Masters, and Nivera played. I mean, he was not a scrub sub. I mean, he was a sub who made a difference that allowed Team Vitality to win those matches. So I think Astralis saw the benefit of implementing a plan like that, and it's very interesting how they move forward with it. Will they add more players? I doubt it. I mean, they sold S-Tag when other teams come knocking in. So with those things in mind, I think we're going to be seeing the old dominant self of Astralis, but it's an entirely new way of, I think, how Astralis will be playing in the future. And I think we'll be seeing similar things happening to other teams where they won't stress out or they won't play their core 5 to death. I mean, introducing rotations, adding more variables can also bring in benefits for competitive CSGO. So another MVP goes to Device. I mean, this guy just wins. Whatever thing it is, he's always there. He's not the flashiest player in the server, but I mean, he really gets the job done. He won't pop off with a 40 bomb like Simple, but he won't get shut down either. He will always be there to get his 25 to 30 kills. 20 to 25 kills. It's just solid, you know. I mean, he's definitely deserved to be in the GOAT conversation. And I think ironically, he's one of the most underrated superstars in esports. Underrated in the same way like a player like Tim Duncan is underrated compared to his peers. I mean, this is a guy who is a 2-time MVP, a 5-time NBA champion, a lot of records. But you rarely or never hear him mentioned in the GOAT conversation. I mean, KG is considered to be a better player by a lot of people. You can argue, in fact, that Tim Duncan had a better career, or at least a career similar or on par with Kobe. But Kobe is on the GOAT conversation every time. So I think the same thing happens to Device because you don't get the highlights that you see from guys like Simple or Zaiwu. So, but when it comes to winning, I mean, he's already the most decorated player in CSGO history. Device should be in the GOAT conversation. So it's going to be very interesting when things go back to LAN. What's the true pecking order in CS? But if you're a betting man, you can't go wrong with Astralis. So like and subscribe if you want to. We'll see you in the next video.